Many people have anxiously waited years for this game, as Indiana Jones is a franchise that has made many people's childhood, through many movies, shows, comics, games, for over 40 years and counting. I am not one of those people. I opened Game Pass one day and thought, oh, cool, that dropped. So come with me as I venture through the Great Circle. Is it a great game? Or has it been so long since there's been a good entry in the series that Indiana Jones fans will take anything? Well, let's find out. As always, I'm going to recap the story first, but I'll leave the review portion of the video timestamp below. Probably. We open with Indy reliving the glory days of his career, back when boulders and French people were his biggest problems. Things were much happier, much simpler back then. We cut back to the present, or as some may call it, 1937, with Indy a little buzzed in his office. Well, it's more like his home since he ran out on his fiancée, Marion, but he's got Brody here to keep him company. All you need in life is your boy and a bottle of whiskey. Contemplating how he even ended up here, he goes for a walk around campus, only to find that some dumbass frat kids broke in. I swear they do the same shtick every year. Oh, go steal the priceless artifact that the archaeology professor risked his life for. Yet again, Indy has to take it into his own hands to discipline these monstrous, hulking, Latin-speaking kids. If you ask me, this man's playing with the wrong Raiders. Despite putting up a valiant fight, Indy gets knocked out, realizing in the morning that the intruder stole the fabled cat mummy. Damn it, he just got that thing like a month ago, and he's not ready to part ways with it yet. Realizing that the pendant the giant left behind was Catholic, we leave Brody in charge of our classes and leave for the Vatican. Forgive me, Father, for I must unload the clip on these non-believers. After repeatedly breaking the 6th commandment, we meet up with Father Antonio, who helps us fake our identity on the holiest of lands to trick Father Ventura, Mussolini's right-hand priest. However, a disguise can only work so well when you're destroying underground tombs. We climb our way out and on top of a roof to see that the bad 420 man's personal spirit detective, Emmerich Voss, is here, working with Father Ventura and Mussolini. Thankfully, Indy doesn't have to fight them on his own, as we meet Gina Lombardi, a reporter who's looking for her sister, Laura, one of the world's leading experts in ancient languages. She believes Voss is responsible for her sister's disappearance. Why? Fuck if I know. Women's intuition, I guess. We agree to partner up, finding the cat mummy in the Vatican's secret treasure room, when Locust finds us again. As it turns out, he's a Nephilim. Some call them God's chosen peoples, others say giants. I call him a huge pain in the ass. Thankfully, this time we use Gina as a distraction while we subdue Locust with non-lethal armor-piercing rounds, managing to hide the body before Mussolini, Ventura, and Voss come in. Get your filthy sauerkraut-eating hands off that. I personally gave it a nickname on the flight back from Siwa. Furious, no. Gina, hold me back. I'll kill that son of a bitch. As we're getting ready to avenge our beloved cat, inside it, Voss finds a stone, and his men destroy other statues to find 12 other stones. These are all pieces of the Great Circle, which Voss is collecting on behalf of the man who inspired Kanye West. We try to sneak aboard the airship, but get stopped by Ventura. Thankfully, Locust, one of God's chosen people, has no qualms about shattering Ventura's spine, allowing us to sneak on the ship, where Indy explains the Great Circle to Gina. You see, around the world there are multiple holy sites spread throughout, and if you were to connect all these sites, you'd get a line. A grand line. Or, depending on how you look at it, a circle of sorts. Rumor has it that the sites are connected to a mystical power, and somehow the stones Voss is collecting must be connected. We arrive in Giza and meet up with Gina's contact, Dame Nawal. She helps us sneak into Voss's base where we see that there's a bit of tension between Voss and Corporal Gantz. You see, Gantz was supposed to interrogate a Nephilim hostage for information on the stones, but killed him to assert dominance over Voss. We drop in, interrupting the little spat, and when asked about Laura, Voss tries gaslighting Gina by saying he didn't force her to do anything. In fact, it's entirely possible that she was willingly working for the author of the award-winning novel, Mein Kampf. But before Gina can get a definitive answer, we have to flee the base. We head towards another one of the pyramids to find the next stone, but are stopped by a Nephilim. Why must we fight? He holds sacred knowledge, and if he can be reasoned with, maybe he could tell us the true purpose behind the stones. If we can work together to stop the Nazis from obtaining their power. What am I on about? Reasoning is for those without a 6-shooter. We grab the stone and get washed away in a sea of sand, landing in front of Voss, who takes the stone, leaving Indy to fend off a horde of scorpions until Gina and the wall come for him. Voss is up by 14 stones now. Luckily, Gina intercepted a German transmission about the next stone, allowing us to reach the Himalayas first, finding a German ship atop a mountain. I mean, that's one way to claim something. I think maybe next time a couple flags will get the message across. Aboard the ship, we find the body of Gina's sister, confirming that she was in fact working for a certain Austrian painter. At the very least, Gina should be able to say her goodbyes. Oh god, her face peeled off with a blanket. Yeah, I'm just gonna cover that back up. She should be remembered as she was, before she looked like something out of an anatomy textbook. We find the stone when Gantz and his men find us. Gina hides the stone while Gantz goes on about how devoted he is to the fatherland. If the Führer asked him to bounce on it, he would do it with no hesitation, only stopping to ask, "How hard, Führer, sir?" Gina interrupts this little love confession with a grenade, that causes the ship to start sliding off the mountain. She also realizes that it was the stone's power that brought the ship here, so in a last-ditch effort, Indy uses the stone, teleporting us to Shanghai, where Gantz is ready to move in for the kill. Thankfully, he's taken out by falling debris from a carpet bombing going on outside. Wait. Shit, we're mid-Japanese invasion. Unless you ask the Japanese, in which case they were never here. We maneuver around the Japanese soldiers that never stepped foot in China, according to them, and flee the city shooting fighter planes that must have been vandalized with the Japanese flag, as claimed by the government of Japan. We arrive in Sukhothai, and check in with Brody to see how things are going back at the college. Those bastards at the Board of Education fired Indy in favor of someone who, in their words, doesn't abandon their students. And to top off this shitstorm, this asshole, respectable, well-dressed Nephilim, survived the Vatican and threatens us to stop our search for the stones. Indy goes up to his room, and just as things seemingly hit rock bottom, the hotel gets shot up and burnt to the ground. We manage to escape with the help of the rebel leader, Pai Lin. Her uncle Sunan tells us how to get to the next stone. It's really quite simple. He saw it when he was a child. He was taken there by a giant. Somehow, in his old age, he must have forgot to mention that it was a giant archaeologist-hating snake. We fend off the little Jormungandr long enough to find the location of the next stone, but get stopped yet again by locusts. Ha! Dumbass! Shit. Well, come here, Candyman. I got something sweet I want to give you. Our fight turns into a team-up after this godforsaken creature returns. I am sick and tired of these motherfucking snakes in this motherfucking jungle. We did it. Bring it in, best buddy. Gina stops the fight with a few words of wisdom, saying that Voss is only trying to pin us against each other while he finds the stones with no resistance. Fighting is no use when we should be working together to find the remaining stones. Locust finally listens to reason, revealing that he must protect the stones to atone for what his ancestors did. And... Nice work, Gina. You really had him going there with that sympathy crap. Come on, let's go get that stone. We unlock the vault using the Locust for a game of human chess, and crawl out to find Locust again. Oh wow, would you look at that? You could hardly tell where that stone block hit him on the head. Luckily, it hit him in just the right spot to make him join our side. He blocks incoming fire from Voss's men, buying us just enough time to escape. But it's hard to read a map and avoid German bullets, so we end up driving off a waterfall. Gina washes up into Nazi custody, and Voss lets Gina in on a little secret behind good manipulation. When you want someone to do whatever you want. For example, let's call this hypothetical person, I don't know, Laura. All you gotta do is threaten someone close to her, like a sister for example. He takes her to the Ziggurat of Ur, with Indy and Locust in hot pursuit. Locust summons his Nephilim brethren, whom must have closely followed behind during our weeks-long trek through the desert, to provide a distraction. And before we sneak in, Locust says no matter what goes on in there, take the woman and go. It doesn't matter if you could prevent World War II by prematurely taking out an art school wannabe, take the woman and go. Got it? We rescue Gina and immediately ignore Locust's warning, entering the temple finding Noah's Ark at the bottom. More like the Fury's Ark considering Voss already claimed it in the name of the Fatherland. Before sneaking aboard, we have Gina flee with the stones, but while checking in on an unconscious Locust, Voss is able to catch us from behind. Not for a fight, but for a quick chat, archaeologist to archaeologist. He explains that once all the stones are gathered, they have the power to teleport the user anywhere in the world at will, just like how Noah did before the Great Flood. Some ancient people blame the flood on the Nephilim, which is why they were protecting the stones to redeem themselves for their ancestors' past mistakes. He demands we hand over the stones, but little does he know Gina already took them. She's probably already left the country by now. Damn it, Gina! Voss inserts the stone on a pedestal on the ark and reads the words inscribed, causing a great load of nothing. Well, I shouldn't say that because he causes a small drizzle. Since he wasn't chosen by God, he can't use them as intended, but the light rain quickly turns into a second coming of the Great Flood. Locust attempts to stop the flood while Indy fights Voss, but his never-ending onslaught of white belt karate moves is enough to overwhelm Indy. Voss tries to stop Locust from ruining his great discovery, but is ironically taken out by the power of the stones. And Locust takes the ark away, ending the flood. Between the death of the cat mummy and Indy losing his job, we're left with less than we started with. Except, maybe we get to come back with an Italian reporter around our arm?
Adios, Rambo.
At least I still have Brody. He's always there for me. Like I said in the beginning, I didn't grow up on these movies. In fact, I most likely wouldn't have watched any of them if not for this game. And after finishing the game, I'm hooked. I've already watched the original 3 movies, and I'm probably going to put off editing this video so I could go watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Suffice it to say, I found my new obsession for the next month. But just because the game is connected to a great series doesn't mean that the game is guaranteed to be good. Look at all these examples. Since the game is new, I'll try not to go into too much plot detail, so I don't spoil any of you. Let me just say that the story manages to capture the vibe and atmosphere of the movies beautifully, balancing action-packed scenes with comedic moments, or dialogue-heavy moments with lighthearted fun going on in the background. And while the narrative was amazing, it did have some pacing issues at points. Every time you get to a new open location, you have to buy a key item to progress the story, and you'd always be short on cash. So you'd have to take out a Nazi camp or do a quick side quest. It's not to say that those parts of the game aren't fun and enjoyable, but you get blocked from progressing the story right as you reach an interesting point in the plot. Whoa, there's this mysterious tomb under the Vatican. Wanna know what happens next? Tough shit, get your money up, peasant. It's like waking up to have an amazing 5-star breakfast prepared for you, only to have your mother slap your hand away because you didn't brush your teeth for a full 2 minutes before eating. Like, let me enjoy this gourmet meal you prepared in peace. However, when you're allowed to keep the story moving at a fast pace, it's a fun journey through deserts, swampy forests, ice mountains, and more. However, don't go in expecting an action-packed adventure all the way through. The game is slower and more stealth-based. You have to rely on your surroundings, finding weapons that let you one-shot people from behind, splitting up groups with bottles, whipping someone to you to safely take them out from behind cover. It's fun once you get the hang of it, but if it's not your type of playstyle, you probably won't like this game, because you could try to go in lucky hat in one hand, revolver in the other. But you only get 12 shots, and anything between 25 to 0 shots with weapons found on the floor. If you can't kill everybody with that, you're getting jumped like a nerdy kid in a mid-2000s movie. Although admittedly, that might be my fault. I missed like half the upgrades scattered throughout the game, but even with half a kit, I managed to get by just fine. When the game was announced to be first person, I'll admit, I was hesitant about playing it. Because in a game starring one of the most iconic characters in film history, you only get to see him in cutscenes. What kind of logic is that? And what makes even less sense is when you finally get your hands on the game, and you're always switching between third and first person. Why not just keep the game third person at that point? Especially if one of your marketing points for the premium edition is a skin you will rarely get to see in all its glory. However, I held my judgment and kept playing the game. Now that I've finished it, I still think it should have been third person. Like, there's no point in constantly switching, just keep it one or the other. I know many people were defending this choice in order to avoid drawing Uncharted comparisons. But if the worst case scenario is that your game is being compared to one of the best-selling game franchises in the last 20 years that was heavily inspired by this very series, you're doing something right. However, in defense of first person, it does get you more immersed in certain situations than third person ever could. At one point, you're fighting a giant blind guy in a dark room, and the first person builds the tension for that fight as you're slowly crouching around with a lighter looking for anything to use as a weapon. It feels as if you were thrown straight into something like Outlast, because when you make too much noise, he bomb rushes you from the other side of the room. It also benefits some of the action segments too, as you witness your surroundings collapse around you when you're escaping with an artifact, or gunning down planes in a dogfight over the skies of Shanghai. And one of the last things I want to touch on is the cast. I'll try to stick to the main four here, of course starting with the title character himself. Indy gets more development as to why his relationship with Marion ended after Raiders of the Lost Ark. You get to see him vulnerable the few times she's mentioned. His usual cool exterior cracks, even if it's just for a moment. He's faced with his inability to settle down out of fear of becoming his father, which made Indy grow on me very quickly. Like I said, I didn't grow up with the series. To me, he was always just Han Solo with the whip. So having the deeper intricacies of the character on display only made him more likable and relatable to me. Of course, combined with all the other moments where he gets to just be a badass with a whip. His personality meshes well with Gina, who I definitely have mixed feelings on. In one hand, she's not only my favorite side character, but a character I would like to see return in any future sequels that may be made. Her story isn't anything special, she just wants to find her sister. But she's willing to go through the entire Nazi army if that's what it takes. And like I said earlier, her dynamic with Indy is one of the highlights of the game. In my opinion anyways. But that all gets soured by the fact that she's a love interest. That's one of my big problems with a game like this, because no matter how well written the relationship is between her and Indy, you know that romance is doomed to fail, because of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and the Dial of Destiny. It's like watching a filler arc for an anime. Like, wrap it up, you already got a canon love interest and a kid waiting for you in the next few arcs. Quit side questing with a reporter and get back to it. Moving on, a story can only be as good as its antagonist, and Voss is everything you'd want from an Indiana Jones villain. I'm saying with my very limited knowledge on the series, of course. He's so unnerving yet unserious at times. For every scene like this, it's contrasted with one where he's 3 steps ahead, playing a tape to lure someone in to attack him, with a gun he's left in plain sight that was never even loaded to begin with. He's cold, calculating, manipulative, a damn near perfect adversary for Indy. He steals the scene from me anytime he's on screen. And finally, Locus. He felt a little underutilized to me. Despite having a ton of plot relevance, he lacks character. If he were played by anyone other than Tony Todd, I would have easily forgot about him. His whole story is wanting to protect the secrets of the Great Circle to atone for the mistakes of his ancestors. There's so much untapped potential there, with Locust and the Nephilim in general, that's most likely being saved for the expansion, leaving base game Locust feeling underwhelming. I don't know, I feel like I'm being a bit too harsh, but I just wanted more from one of Tony Todd's last few roles. I wanted him to be more impactful in the story when that's not what the character was supposed to be. When the guy who was a big part of some of your childhood favorites passes away, you want him to go out on the highest note possible. And I guess sometimes that's just not in the cards. Overall though, whether you're a longtime fan of the series or trying to get into it, The Great Circle is definitely worth your time. And who knows, you might end up like me, binge watching a bunch of movies you put off watching your entire life. Well, that's all I got for this one. I'm gonna go train myself to learn how to use a whip, and I won't quit until I've mastered it. Or flicked so wrong I severely injure myself. So subscribe, or don't. Either way, I'm a head out. Later.